Maybe democracy is not for us. I mean, those who are in positions of leadership seem unable to grasp what democracy is all about. And whether or not they're familiar with the Constitution they so proudly flaunt when seeking donor funding is also yet to be determined. They are threatening us with the security forces once more. Recently, the former chief of the Namibian Defence Force, Martin Shalli, scared the black out of most Namibians when he at a rally said that those who defect from the SWAPO party and opposition leaders should be not shot, but slaughtered.
Kuta SWAPO keri alina popinga shishalita popinga ndembo ngulo kwa toto fatia ina kale hatipa wabako
Bruh, the nation was incensed, and some opposition leaders decided to lay criminal charges against the former NDF chief. Shalli has since apologized to the nation, meeting a deadline set for him by the AR movement. Even the Electoral Commission of Namibia was mum on the issue until they were pressured by various groups to do something about this. I spoke to investigative journalist John Grobler about this trend of threatening citizens with violence.
We forget that, 15 years ago, we also had, Sam Nujoma making the same kind of comments. I mean, it is that hardline posturing of the hard men trying to portray something that they maybe not really are. Because, it strikes me that those who threaten war and violence the most are those who never made it to the front lines to begin with. This is pure and simple intimidation. Even if his comment was just in the figurative sense of slitting their throats, as in cutting them off from resources and all of that, that comes down to the same thing. Yeah? But the fact is, as we both know, Oshilambo is a quite literal language. I don't think there's much space for, analogies and that kind of thing here. It was thoughtless, careless, and irresponsible, and it is in violation of the Electoral Act. There is a very clear code of conduct, or the code of conduct is very clear, and SWAPO signed that, and if you are campaigning on behalf of SWAPO, you have to stick to that. So they have to publicly censure him or be seen as condoning that. And it remains to be seen what they will do in this respect. Yeah, ECN is just passing the buck because, they are clearly intimidated by this faction and where it comes from. Because again, you understand where this is. This is basically the right-wing militant side of SWAPO that falsely claims that they had wrested independence for Namibia through the barrel of the gun, and we know that's not true. I mean, it was a negotiated settlement, and those who are making these statements are people who didn't really bleed in the trenches and weren't out there, out the front. I mean, those guys are invisible. But this is a very, very worrisome tendency that, has been becoming more and more pronounced over the past year. Because, we had this hard-handed approach under the COVID thing, and we've had all these various operations. So, there's a very distinct tendency from the, let's call it the securocrat complex, to assert themselves at the expense of everybody else. You can see from the government budgets that got rolled out now that the Ministry of Defence is allocated an enormous sum of 13.9 billion, which is, it's absurd. I mean, where is the enemy? Who is the enemy? To me, it seems the enemy is within, and it's wearing an NDF uniform at this stage, or maybe, a retired NDF uniform, because let's be clear about Shalli here. This is the man who was basically moved out of the job as Chief of Staff because of corruption, and then got caught trying to launder this money through his secretary's accounts, and was somehow all overlooked because, well, it's that faction. And we need to confront that faction because they are a minority. They are a tiny minority, but they are an extreme minority, and we are at risk of them hijacking the agenda for the foreseeable future, because I don't think SWAPO is going to do very well in the coming local and regional elections, and there is bound to be a bit of a strong knee-jerk reaction after that in the run-up to the next election. So it is now time for us to tame them and bring them to heel. Yeah, we need to put a leash on these guys. Yeah, for people like Shalli to make statements like this is to encourage others to do the same and actually, take him on his word, because now people out there that haven't got a lot between the ears, and they will take this as yes, the general said we should, cut people's throats, and if anyone is killed because of this, Shalli will be responsible as well. I mean, I don't know if he thought about that, but he will be an accomplice to the fact if there is any murder or any violence committed, under in the upcoming election. So it's time we call the military and all of these hardliners to account. Enough is enough now. They have now for 30 years hijacked the agenda, run away with the military budget is just senseless in a country like ours, where we don't have enough medicines and we don't have books in the schools, and where the kids in the hostels don't have enough food, where there is a massive need for everything else. Why are we spending all this money on the military? Are we trying to steer things the Zimbabwean way, or are we trying to figure out an alternative future for us here? One thing is clear to me, is that if we don't want to go the Zimbabwean way, then we need to take our future back from these hardliners, and do so soon.